My name is Dan Atar. I'm a professor of cardiology at the University Hospital in Oslo, and we have so-called dual appointments at the university in a full professorship of University of Oslo, that is in Norway. Now, the European Society of Cardiology has a quite important role in conveying scientific news by the congresses that are organized each year, and very much so by the very high regarded guidelines that also are produced every year for the various topics within cardiology. It is actually so that many national societies of cardiology endorse officially the ESC guidelines regularly, and in this sense, the ESC has an extremely important educational function within our field. Currently, I'm chairing the task force for the fellowships, the FESC titles, and that is again a task which is important because the fellowship of the ESC is one of the important distinctions of the membership. Historically, it started up with being a rather bench type of research in heart muscle, and it developed then into clinical research. And my big current interest is large-scale clinical trials, and that is a field which is really extremely exciting, enrolling patients into clinical trials that really try to answer important clinical dilemmas and open questions. So my most important current project is a nationwide clinical trial entitled BETAMI, and it's visible from the website betami.org, and it's simply a post-infarction trial in several thousands of patients who have survived a myocardial infarction, who are being randomized to not receiving a beta blocker versus a beta blocker. And the question is interesting in the field because for decades, the utility of post-infarction beta blockers has been an absolute necessity, a recommendation, very strong recommendation. But this stems from the time where the entire treatment of myocardial infarction had been totally different from now. And as you are aware, the immediate revascularization of occluded infarction arteries, coronary arteries, has led to a revolution in our field. So we hypothesized that it is no longer necessary to have these drugs on board, and we'll be able to finish the enrollment up to 6,000 patients this year. This is going to be rather interesting to try to reach out with the results, because we know that many people are eager to learn how this trial is going to end. So alongside the engagement in all types of clinical and translational research projects, there has always been a priority for me to collaborate with pharmaceutical industry on phase 2, what is called phase 2 and 3 studies. And some of these are really extremely important to advance our field. It really changes medical practice to have some of these important phase 3 investigations in patients. Not least, I'd like to mention that for the younger colleagues, there is an enormous learning in the methodology of performing such a clinical trial, because the good clinical practice principles are very strictly reinforced in the studies that entail a new type of medication. And therefore, I have very good experience in that collaboration with industry. I had a manuscript in my very early years in which we measured coronary artery diameters in various conditions in patients. And I thought, completely unexperienced how I was, I thought cardiology would be a great target journal to send this manuscript to. And so we did, and it ended up being then published in Cardiology, and that's many years ago. So I think it was my second international publication of all the 500 I had. So that was the start with this very journal and this very publisher. So many years later, Dr. Sarah Burani and myself proposed to launch a new journal. We at that time called it Heart Drug, dedicated to cardiovascular pharmacotherapy. And it was approved by Dr. Karger at that time. And we established this journal for some time. And at a later time point, in agreement with the editor-in-chief, Dr. Jeffrey Borer of Cardiology, we agreed to merge Heart Drug into Cardiology. So since then, it has been Cardiology that is in my focus. And I was very humble and fortunate to receive the request at some time point, I think 4 years ago, to step into the editor-in-chief position of Cardiology after Dr. Borer, which we then transitioned successfully, and that's my task now. So in one sentence, I would say it's a really reliable, solid, and quality-oriented team at Karger. That award is something that innovation companies really cherish, and I have an advisor role for quite a few of those startup companies, not only in this country, but in several places. And it is really something that the innovators try to apply for, because it is well known that the Vesalius Award, if one succeeds, it gives an enormous focus on a startup company. It gives a spotlight. It comes also with a monetary reward, and in this sense, I thought it's a really great prize. And I was asked to contribute as one of the assessors, which I think is an interesting task. You see all types of new developments in the industrial/academic interface, and that's really an interesting task indeed. They really get a visibility which is otherwise difficult, and I'm sure it also features a type of excellence which again triggers motivation in investors or potential investors. So the entire interaction is very, very valuable for startup companies. If they don't succeed in receiving the first ranked #1 award, they still have tuition in place from the advisors, which can help them make the right choices for the near futures in their development of their companies.